My name is Jessica Hale. I'm 32 years old. I had been on the road for 9 hours when I pulled into my parents' driveway, my lower back screaming and my feet swollen enough that slipping them out of my shoes felt like mercy. I was 7 months pregnant, exhausted, and still somehow hopeful, which, in hindsight, should have warned me something was wrong. The porch light was on. Cars lined the street. Laughter leaked through the walls before I even opened the door. I adjusted the weight of the gift bag in my hand, the one I'd spent too much money on, and took a breath before stepping inside. The dining room was full. Not just full, complete. Every chair was occupied, plates were half cleared, wine glasses clinked. Conversations didn't stop when I entered. They didn't even slow. My seat, the corner one by the window, the one I'd sat in every birthday since I was a kid, was gone. A woman I didn't recognize was sitting there, her arm draped casually over the back of the chair, laughing with my uncle like she'd earned that place, like she belonged there more than I did. My mother glanced up. She smiled, not warmly, not with surprise, but with the kind of laugh you give when someone shows up late to the wrong meeting. "Oh," she said, "I didn't know you were coming. The table's full." "That was it." "No, you made it." "No." "Are you okay?" "No. That must have been a long drive." Just full. I stood there, one hand instinctively resting on my stomach, the other gripping the gift bag so tightly my fingers ached. I'd left at 5 in the morning. I'd eaten a protein bar at a gas station near the border. I'd waited 2 hours while a mechanic patched a tire behind a sketchy Wendy's. And I'd done it smiling, because I thought surprising my mom for her birthday might matter. My older sister was the only one who moved. She stood up quickly and crossed the room, wrapping me in a hug that was too tight, too apologetic. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know she invited so many people." The guilt in her voice didn't belong to her. "It's fine," I said, because that's what I'd always said, even when it wasn't. No one else spoke. My father gave me a quick nod, like he'd acknowledged an item on a checklist. Then my mother turned and went back into the kitchen. I stood there for another second, just long enough to realize no one was going to offer me a chair, then quietly set the gifts by the coat rack and walked back out the door. Hotel check-in took 10 minutes. I booked 2 nights. I needed a shower, a bed, and distance. Not from the noise, but from the truth settling in my chest like wet cement. Room service arrived. I didn't taste the food. I stared at the TV until my phone buzzed. "Dad, where's the rent money?" Not, "Did you make it?" Not, "Why did you leave?" Not, "Are you okay?" Just money. The joint account. The one I'd been putting into since my promotion. The house they couldn't quite manage without my help. I didn't reply. I logged in, transferred every dollar I'd contributed back into my personal savings, and closed the app. An hour later at 9:17 p.m., another message came through. "Mom, that was rude of you." I stared at it for a long time. Then I turned off my phone. Something inside me had shifted, quietly, permanently. They wanted to treat me like a stranger. Fine. They'd see how far I could take it. I didn't sleep much that night. The hotel bed was too soft, the pillows somehow too stiff, and the silence pressed against my ears like it was trying to say something. Every time I closed my eyes, I was back in that dining room. The laughter that didn't pause, the chair that wasn't mine anymore, my mother's voice saying the table's full like she was talking about weather. By morning, my phone was lit up. A message from my mom had come through at 6:43 a.m. "I'm sorry if I seemed cold last night. Things were chaotic. You should have told me you were coming." I read it twice. Sorry if cold last night, and somehow still my fault. I didn't answer. I showered, got dressed slowly, and sat on the edge of the bed, thinking about that joint account. The one my parents insisted on years ago, for convenience. The one tied to the mortgage of the house I grew up in. The house they still lived in, still struggled to keep afloat. When I got promoted, I started helping, a few hundred here, more when they hinted things were tight. I never asked for receipts, never asked for thanks. I thought that's what family did. My phone buzzed again. "Dad, you can't just take the money out like that. That was for the mortgage." I stared at the screen, not humiliated this time, not even angry. "Just done." I didn't reply. Instead, I drove across town to Birch Street. My grandfather opened the door, took one look at my face, and said, "They're lucky you didn't drive your car through that damn dining room." I laughed once, and then I cried. We sat at his kitchen table for an hour. I didn't have to explain much. He'd always noticed the things everyone else pretended not to see. The way my parents talked around me, the way help only counted when it benefited them. By noon, my cousins came by. They hugged me like they meant it. I gave them the gifts I'd brought for their kids, Books, toys, little handmade things I'd wrapped carefully. "Are you okay?" one of them asked. It was the first time all weekend anyone had. Later that afternoon, I was back at the hotel, about to lie down, when my phone buzzed again. "Dad, your sister wants you to come by, just for a bit." I knew better than to think it was about me. Still, I went. For her, not for them. When I pulled into the driveway, I could hear the arguing from outside, my dad's voice sharp, brittle, my mom's tight, defensive. I slipped in through the back door like I used to when I was a teenager, trying not to be seen. My sister stood between them, shoulders tense, eyes red. Then the front door opened. My grandfather walked in. The room froze. My dad started in immediately. Something about how I was being dramatic, how they'd always tried, how I never appreciated anything. I don't remember exactly what he said. I remember what happened next. My grandfather stepped forward and slapped him. Not hard, not violent. Just enough. The sound cut through the room like a gunshot. Everything went silent, the kind of silence where even the walls feel like they are listening. "That's your daughter," my grandfather said, voice steady. "She's pregnant, and you treat her like trash." My mom opened her mouth. He turned on her too. "You humiliated her in front of everyone. Don't pretend you don't know what you did." Then he looked at me. "You don't need to say anything," he said quietly. "They've already said enough." I didn't look at my parents. I turned to my sister, pressed an envelope into her hand, and whispered, "Get out when you can." She opened it just enough to see the number. "No more waiting," I said. She started crying. I didn't say goodbye when I left. I just walked out, my father still frozen, rubbing his cheek, my mother staring like this was all some misunderstanding she'd fix later. Back at the hotel, the town outside my window went dark one streetlight at a time. For the first time, I understood something clearly. I hadn't ruined a family dinner. I'd stopped pretending I belonged to one. The silence after I left their house felt heavier than the noise inside it. I drove back to the hotel with my hands steady on the wheel, my mind oddly calm. That scared me more than the anger ever had. Anger meant hope, hope that someone might still change. Calm meant I'd already accepted they wouldn't. The gifts I'd brought for my mom were still in the trunk. I didn't bring them inside. That night, I sat by the window with the curtains half open, watching the town I grew up in fall asleep. I used to lie in my childhood bedroom imagining escape, college, work, a life far enough away that their voices couldn't reach me. Back then, I thought I was the problem. If I were quieter, more helpful, less sensitive. If I just tried harder. Now, pregnant with my first child, I finally understood something I should have learned years ago. You can't earn love from people who need you small. Morning came with messages. My dad texted first. "We need to talk about what you did. Not how you feel, not what we did." My mom's message was longer, careful, polished. She wrote that she didn't mean to hurt me, that things had gotten out of hand, that we should talk like adults. Then she added the line that sealed it for me. "Don't let your pregnancy make you emotional." I didn't even finish reading. I blocked her number. I hadn't driven 9 hours to fight. I'd come because I wanted to give her something. A chance, maybe. One last opening. But people don't change when they still believe they're right. And my mother had been right about everything her whole life. Around noon, I went back to see my sister. The house was quiet. Too quiet. My dad was gone. My mom was resting, which meant hiding behind a locked bedroom door like nothing had happened. I slipped in through the side door like we used to as kids. My sister looked exhausted. Her kids sat on the floor with headphones on, lost in their screens, trying not to exist. She hugged me hard, like she was holding herself together through me. "I don't know how much longer I can do this," she whispered. I handed her the envelope I'd prepared the night before. Inside was a check for $10,000. She stared at it, then shook her head. "I can't take this." "It's not a gift," I said. "It's freedom." She didn't argue after that. I told her I'd already called an apartment complex that morning. A 2-bedroom. The application was in her email. First month's rent paid. "All you have to do is sign," I said, "and wait for the right moment." When I left, I didn't look back. That afternoon, my grandfather was waiting in his truck outside the hotel. He handed me a manila envelope. Inside were the original papers for the car he'd given my parents years ago. It had never been legally transferred. They'd just used it, assumed it was theirs. "If they don't stop," he said, "I'm taking back everything." We drove together to the house. My dad opened the door, already tired. Like some part of him knew this was coming and hoped he could talk his way out of it. "Not this time." My grandfather didn't raise his voice. "This is your last chance," he said. "You either start treating Jessica and her sister with respect, or you lose every bit of help I've ever given you." My mom tried to explain, to soften it, to spin it. He cut her off with a look. I watched you humiliate your pregnant daughter, he said. I don't care what excuses you think you have. When we left, my dad didn't say a word. My mom stood by the window, still believing one more guilt trip could fix everything. She was wrong. Back at the hotel, I packed slowly. Not because I was unsure, but because each folded shirt, each pair of shoes, dropped into my bag, felt like proof that this chapter was actually ending. I wasn't running anymore. I was closing something. Before I left town, I stopped by my sister's house one last time. She met me at the door before I could knock. Her eyes were swollen, but there was something new there, too. Resolve. I don't know how I'll ever repay you, she said. You already have, I told her, by surviving that house. I hugged the kids, promised I'd visit soon, and left before emotion could pull me back. When I returned to the hotel, my grandfather was waiting outside again, leaning against his truck like a sentry. They're panicking, he said. Your dad already knows I'm serious. I nodded. I felt strangely detached, like I'd stepped out of a storm and was finally watching it from behind glass. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. That evening, an email came through. Blocked numbers don't stay blocked when people get desperate. Mom, let's not end things this way. I deleted it without opening. 15 minutes later, another email arrived. Dad, we're having dinner tonight, just us. Every instinct told me it was a setup. And yet, a small, stubborn part of me still wanted to believe they might finally say the words they'd avoided my entire life. I stopped at a diner, ordered coffee I didn't drink, and sat there long enough to decide I wasn't going for reconciliation. I was going for closure. When I pulled into the driveway at sunset, their car wasn't there. The porch light was on. The back door, my door, was cracked open. Inside, the dining table wasn't set for dinner. It was set with a folder and 2 cups of coffee. My mom sat stiffly at one end. My dad stood near the counter. They talked about the house, the bank, the pressure. Dad mentioned that Grandpa had already taken back the car. Then he said it. We know you have savings. Not we're sorry, not we were wrong. We just need enough to catch up. That was the moment everything crystallized. It had never been about family. Only money. I stood to leave. Don't be selfish, my mom called after me. I looked down at the folder. It wasn't bills. It was a life insurance policy. On me. My signature sat in the bottom, forged so cleanly it almost impressed me. I didn't say a word. I walked out, got into my car, and called my husband before my hands could start shaking. He listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't doubt me for a second. The next morning, I reported the fraud. But that wasn't the only thing I'd been doing. I hadn't just come back to town to confront ghosts. I'd been house hunting. That afternoon, I put an offer in on a 3-bedroom near my grandfather's place. It was accepted within hours. I didn't tell anyone. When the down payment cleared, I cried in my car. Not the quiet, embarrassed kind of crying I'd learned to do growing up, but the deep, chest-shaking kind that comes when something heavy finally lifts. I wasn't buying a house. I was buying an exit. I signed the papers alone, my hand resting on my stomach as if my daughter already understood what this moment meant. 3 bedrooms, windows that let in light, a place where silence wouldn't feel like punishment. The first person I called was my sister. I didn't explain much, I just told her to pack. When I pulled up to the apartment complex, she was already outside with the kids, bags at her feet, eyes wide like she didn't trust happiness yet. I handed her the keys. You're free, I said. She covered her mouth and cried. Her kids laughed, actually laughed, like they hadn't done that in years. They'll be furious, she whispered. Let them be, I said. That night I went back once more, not alone, and not to argue. My grandfather placed an envelope on the table in front of my parents, a letter revoking their inheritance. My dad shouted. My mom cried. For once I didn't flinch. You did this yourselves, I said. Outside, my grandfather sighed. I should have done this years ago. Weeks passed. My sister and her kids were safe, settled, sleeping through the night. My daughter, Elise, was born surrounded by people who wanted her, not for what she could provide, but for who she was. Our parents moved 2 towns over. We never followed. I didn't destroy a family. I ended a cycle.